Welcome to another edition of Bragglands, and of course the Willie Bragg Show is on both platforms. And we have Dolores Pierce from around the world, Dee and friends today. If just in case you noticed, Jimi is not here; she's not feeling well, and hopefully she'll get better. And next week she'll be back here again. So. Dolores, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll get underway.
Yes, Dolores Pierce, around the world, Dee and friends. And I'm usually on at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We talk about issues around the world, and our focus has been on Palestine for over a year and a half. Well, it's just so much going on over there. That wasn't really our intent of the show, because we do talk about other places, but the tragedy that was happening in Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza, was consistent. It was all the time, and it was like, how could you not talk about it? Everybody else was pretty much focused on talking about Russia and Ukraine, and what was happening in Gaza and the West Bank and Alaska Mosque was terrible. It was terrible. And we would hear often from different countries and here from the U.S. that they condemned the Israeli actions in Gaza. They condemned the West Bank. But they condemned all the actions that Israel was doing, but nobody would stop it. That it hit a point where we just got so tired of hearing this condemnation and nothing being done to stop Israel from attacking Palestine. So it's just been awful, and the world pretty much came on board when October 7th hit, but this was going on long before, and we were not surprised at all, because Hamas had already said about what was going on at Al-Aqsa Mosque and the different things that were going on, that there was going to be a response to everything that Israel's been doing. And, but that just seems to get kicked away broadside. Nobody pays attention. And even right now, we've got that whole red heifer starting up again, the sacrifice. And that's what has been angering the whole Muslim world, because they want to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest mosque in Islam. And who wouldn't be upset? But
Absolutely.
you have the Zionist Christians and the Zionist Jews, extremists that are all pushing for this. And some of them are saying March 29th, which is the end of this week. They're going to have the sacrifice some point between now and in April.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say it's dangerous. It's extremely dangerous.
Yes, it is. And it seems the bright side is that people are finally waking up and realizing what's going on. And the age of social media can't hide this anymore the way it has in the past, where there was, the media did a good job years ago of covering things up and all of that. And you just can't hide this stuff anymore. And to the point where, you got people here in America who are a little more brave about, still a long ways to go, but they're a little more brave about standing up to what Israel is doing and all of that. And, I mean, I just like this just recently, Benjamin Netanyahu had his feelings hurt over the abstention vote from the UN, from the U.S. in this Security Council. Just kind of like what is he going to do to break diplomatic ties with the United States? He's going to be more further isolated than he is right now, and if he wants, I mean, that's probably the fastest way for Israel to cease to exist if even the United States doesn't have his back. So
There's got to be change coming, because they've lost a lot in Israel. Their economy is a mess. Tourism obviously is a mess. You have in the North Israel, there's Lebanon is striking back, and the Hezbollah is really pushed in on their territory. Even though Israel has been, they used to just once in a while shoot into Lebanon, and they'd shoot into Syria, and they recently hit Damascus airport again, and but they're all really hitting back big time. The Golan Heights area.
Yeah. Max Blumenthal talked about it's I think it's something in the Bible about Amalek or Amalek.
Yeah, he talks about Netanyahu and that right wing talk about that.
Yeah, basically using scripture to justify genocide, basically, and open about it. And why doesn't the United States just be like, look here, it's one thing to have Israel's back. It's another thing to sit there and complicitly, just be complicit and say, well, this is up to Israel. They can do what they need to do, and it seems like that's the attitude. And even the little tepid please play nice by Biden, that's perceived as being anti-Israel for some reason.
Yeah, the thing is, he's got so much money. He's taken too much money over the years from IPAC and different groups. And you have the Christian Zionist. A lot of Christian Zionists, the Republican Party, and then too, in the Democrats, you have a mixture of Zionists, whether it's Christian Zionists, Jewish Zionists, and they're all taking the money. They're taking a lot of money, and we saw in the last election the powerhouse of the Jewish lobbyists, the Israeli lobbyist groups, and they're a big powerhouse, so that's a big fight. And I think, like you said earlier, this is waking up a lot of people. A lot of people are waking up to the reality, and it's got to be a clear separation for people to understand that this is Zionism, and how Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism.
Exactly.
Because we've seen Jewish groups fighting back. They're pretty much the leaders of fighting against this Zionism.
Yes, and what's going on over there is making me concerned about an actual resurgence of anti-Semitism in the West, considering the actions of Netanyahu. I want to make that clear. It does not speak on behalf of Judaism, or I have to tell people this when somebody's like, "Oh, what, you got some problem with Jewish people? Why are you criticizing Israel?" I'm criticizing their actions. I'm criticizing Netanyahu. I'm criticizing the right wing. This is not a criticism of Jewish people around the world, or even maybe the minuscule left that exists inside Israel today.
Mm-hmm.
I will argue that they're friends in groups like Meretz in Israel that wants this bullshit to stop by the government, and to negotiate for a peace and all of that. And there are various avenues to go with, either either the two-state solution if both sides could stick to it, or maybe a successor state that's neither Israeli nor Palestinian, but something where there is a secular state that's a successor to both societies. I don't care how it's done, as long as nobody's killing each other and there's peace there.
See, Zionism, they have the Greater Israel plan. So it just doesn't stop with Palestine. It goes into Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, parts of Saudi Arabia. So this plan keeps going, and to Judaize the whole area. And with this right wing, people that are to the left, say Jewish people to the left, or that are not part of, say, the whole Zionism plan, they're considered outcasts, just as the everybody else that is not Jewish. And according to this right wing, they have a right. They have a right to kill non-Jews.
I have heard Christian Zionists make that claim too, that they have every right to, that the country has every right to commit whatever type of war they want. They claim that they have every right to force people into conversions if need be. I mean, I've heard it all over the years, and it is a cult mindset. I mean, it is, yeah. And again, not the theology of Judaism, not the ethnicity of Judaism, not Jewish individuals, but a movement that comprises of, yeah, there are Jewish people in there that happens to be Jewish. There are Christians. Honestly, there are Islamic Zionists that exist. And I was fascinated to find that out. I was like, what? But you learn something new every day. But,
well, there was a movement. There was a movement back when back in the late 1800s, with Zionism, to bring Zionism into Christianity, and that's when you had, the end time is, and a lot of money being put into different Christian schools and promoting the whole the Zionist agenda, because the Zionists knew, so the Jewish Zionists knew that in order to bring America on board, the USA on board, a lot of the people in the USA attend different types of Christian churches. So you had to bring that psychology into the Christian groups.
And there is even a good, quote unquote, good cop Zionism that's dead, and that's labor Zionism. When the Soviets and even Social Democrats in the West were trying to create something, that's gone. I mean, there's none of that left. And
and I was going to say, in Israel, the far right, when you look into them, they'll say that in a lot of their educational system, I mean, the teachings are the Talmud, not the Torah. The Torah, which is supposed to be the main teaching, the Torah, it's the Talmud, and that is completely different. And that's where you've got all this hatred of Arabs and hatred of non-Jews, and it's been a generational thing where they've indoctrinated the youth in their hatred of Arabs, and just the fact of their superiority. And that's why you see the cruelty that's done in Gaza, and they do it thinking they have every right to kill these people because they're brainwashed into that thought process.
Not only that, they feel like they have a right to confiscate property, that sort of thing. And I mean, it's just the discrimination that is allowed, and it's like in a lot of ways, it's like, how dare Israel criticizes any modern day action by South Africa when in decades past, they were in partnership with apartheid in South Africa.
Oh,
I mean,
definitely,
yeah, this is
definitely they were.
it came close to home with South Africa with the international court. It was like they remember this when it was happening, and,
Hmm.
and they and I totally side with modern day South Africa over it with the international court. I mean, because of the injustice that they faced for decades. Maybe not all because of Israel. The United States backed South Africa. I remember during the Reagan presidency, I was a young kid. It was my very first boycott. I was boycotting Coca-Cola because they dealt with South Africa. That was my little first sign of activism back in the 80s. And I was made fun of for doing that. But anyhow, I was a nerd when I was growing up. So,
You're doing the right thing. You're standing up for what you believed in.
well, yeah, I mean, because yeah, and today half the states have these anti-boycott laws where where you could go to prison for 20 years or face a $250,000 fine, and they're trying to make that law national, which would go against the First Amendment. I mean, it would just and it's so selective because I'm going to use this as an example. A country that nobody's mad at today, Norway, but nobody would think it's controversial if somebody's mad at Norway and wanted to boycott Norwegian products. Or
Nobody would.
yeah, and whatever people may think of China today, you can understand why with the workers' rights or what have you, products, the imbalance of trade, why people want to go and boycott China. That's not really all that controversial. I don't want to make an enemy out of China, but anyway, but I can understand where people are coming from. But all of a sudden, if you boycott Israel, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get in legal trouble over this, and the various states where like in Texas, having to assign a loyalty oath to Israel.
Isn't that crazy? I thought the same thing. It's totally crazy. And this is something we really have to stand up against because this is totally ridiculous because you're looking at the power of Zionism. The control it has over, we look at the Palestinian people and what they're doing, say, in the Middle East region. But look what they're doing to us. And they're doing the same thing over in the UK. It's
Now,
kind of like everybody to bow down to Zionism.
yeah. Now, with regard to the state of Georgia here in the U.S., Abby Martin from the Empire Files was going to do some lecture at one of the universities, and she had to sign a a pledge not to criticize Israel. That was in a rule in the University of Georgia system, and she took that to the state Supreme Court, and on First Amendment grounds, that got struck down. So that was a victory on her. She helped with a victory, calling awareness to what's going on, like in Georgia, and it's probably like that in some other states as well. Um, you know, I would like to think somewhere down the road that they will decide this is just absolutely unconstitutional what these various states are doing, and strike down all these laws.
Definitely, definitely. And also, when you look at Zionism, what's happening with our law enforcement, we see in Atlanta with that, the training with the IDF and
Yeah, Cop City,
surveillance is,
right?
yeah, Cop City. And different weapons and different training that they have, they'll say, well, it's all been tested on the Palestinians. And when we talk about surveillance, the same thing. It's been tested on the Palestinians. And in New York, you had Eric Adams, the mayor. He went over talked to Netanyahu, and ordered some security stuff, surveillance stuff for New York City, tested on the Palestinians.
Yeah, it was outrageous. That is definitely outrageous. And even in the UK, in the year 2017, it was when Theresa May won that election.
Mm-hmm.
That they went and tried to smear Jeremy Corbyn as an anti-Semite, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So here's what I don't understand. I think all bigotry is equal. Whether it's based on race, color, your skin, your religion, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, or whatever. I think they're all equally evil. I don't have
Yes, they
any.
are. You're right.
And here's what I don't get. Even if it's true, which it isn't, that Jeremy Corbyn is some sort of demented anti-Semite, and again, I don't think he is one bit. Even if that's true, pardon my language, but I have to say, what the fuck is Theresa May doing to try to have a coalition government with a political party in Northern Ireland called the Democratic Unionist Party, which is affiliated with the late Ian Paisley, the Protestant minister that was trying to totally Protestantize Northern Ireland, who is anti-Catholic, and the party is anti-Catholic, and they're anti-LGBTQ. And I would argue that if you're anti-Catholic and anti-LGBTQ, somewhere around the corner, you might even be anti-Semitic. So
yeah, and when it comes to anti-Semitic too, is that Arabic is the largest Semitic language. Okay, that's when you talk about Semitic. It has to do with languages. So the largest Semitic group is the Arab group. So actually, Israel has been anti-Semitic to the Palestinians because they are a Semitic group.
And a lot of the Sephardic Jews, I guess, of the Middle East and in Spain, they're basically Arab people that converted to Judaism and practiced the Jewish faith. So there is that aspect too. So and that's another thing about the bigotry between the two people. And it's kind of like, honestly, in a lot of cases, it's going to sound politically incorrect, but I will say it anyway, that when I look at the average Israeli and the average Palestinian side by side, you put them both in Western clothing and you really can't tell them apart.
No.
Yeah. So but that's the thing right there. A lot of people also have this idea, well, they're just a bunch of Muslims, what have you.
They're a highly educated group. Palestinians are highly educated.
Not only that, I think that as far as being Islamic, they're probably very a secularized version of it. A lot of them, I don't think, really practice the more fundamentalist aspect of it, and there's a lot of them who are Christian as well.
Exactly, and that's the thing too. A lot of in Gaza, Christian churches were bombed, and then you have over in Israel some of the people that are saying, "Oh, there's no Christians in Gaza." What do you mean there's no Christians in Gaza? Yes, there's Christians in Gaza, there's Catholics in Gaza. Oh, and then too, you hear them in Jerusalem. They're trying to claim that it's an old Jewish custom to spit on Christians. I'm like, no, I've never heard of Jewish people spitting on Christians.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What were you saying?
You have these Orthodox Jews, Zionists, obviously, spitting on Christians in Jerusalem, and they're claiming that it's an old Jewish custom to spit on Christians. I've never ever heard of that, and I spoke with Joe Firestone, and he said it's written nowhere, and he's never heard of it either.
Yeah, well, I know that there's also discrimination against Christian groups in Israel as well,
Yeah.
and you know, and some people are going to watch this and be like, "Oh, this is just an anti-Semitic podcast." Absolutely not.
No, it's
Absolutely
not.
no. No, not at all. If they think that they if they think it is, I'm like, you know, uh, they're out to lunch. But
Right, because like we said, the Arab group is the largest Semitic group.
yeah,
They are the largest, and nobody says anything about being anti-Semitic when they're going after, an Arabic group.
and not only that, Benjamin Netanyahu is not representative of Judaism.
He's an atheist himself.
It's the only thing he has in common with Bernie Sanders. Under Israeli law, both Benjamin Netanyahu and Bernie Sanders would be recognized under the category of secular Judaism.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's funny about that? The evangelicals who talk so much junk about Pope Francis when he came here to speak at both joint sessions of Congress almost a decade ago.
Hmm.
They hate Pope Francis, but they almost idolize Benjamin Netanyahu, who is, for all intents and purposes, an atheist. Again, I don't have
Yeah,
a problem with him being an atheist. I have a problem with him murdering Palestinians.
exactly. And he's got a plan. He's got a plan. I mean, he wants to, like I said, Judaize the whole region, and he has no interest in Catholics or Christians. I mean, he's just using them. He's using the Christian Zionists for his own end game, his own goals.
And we're talking about mostly evangelical Christians. I think that there's, I think in Catholicism, they're not as devoted to the Zionists. There are Catholic Zionists, of course, but there are.
But they're not as much. So, I mean, it's been more recent because it used to be more social justice. And, recently, I guess with IPAC getting in there, you know, they stopped buying off people.
Well, I still think that, I mean, there are left wing Catholics, and
Hmm.
dare I say there are Catholics who are paleo conservative that are not as, keen on this Zionist experiment. If for those who are, they're usually just, your typical, Sean Hannity type, you
Yeah.
know Republican types that exists out there from the age of talk radio.
Hmm.
But most of the Christian Zionism come from voices like Pastor John Hagee of down in Oklahoma, who's one of the most vile people out, anti-Catholic too, by the way. He
Oh,
is,
yeah, he is.
yes. And which I thought it was funny in 2008 that they were talking about, well, Barack Obama's pastor Jeremy Wright and all this these controversial statements he was making. I'm like, yeah, John McCain had John Hagee as his spiritual advisor, a man who's made anti-Catholic remarks and all that, and who preaches even to this day why he still preaches that the Iraq War was a wonderful thing and that we should go and invade Iran. I mean, he's an unhinged individual.
Right. And that's the whole greater Israel plan. So,
Which
what you're
is,
talking about wiping out all the people there and Judaizing and replacing them with more Jewish groups.
yeah, and
Well,
and
Zionist groups, I should say.
actually with the Christians, their vision of it is in some ways darker, because what they want that piece of real estate, and they're like, well, those Jews are there, but
Mhm.
they want Israel and Iran more than anything else to toss nuclear bombs at each other, which is
Mhm.
why they had an orgasm when Donald Trump pulled out of the Iran peace treaty. The one of the few positive things that was done under Obama, that peace
Mhm.
treaty, it was working. It was working. and that was part of the reason why Speaker of the House John Boehner had Netanyahu speak and went over Obama's head and just had him speak at the joint sessions of Congress.
That was totally disrespectful.
Yes, and I don't even like Obama saying this.
Right, but still, it's disrespectful. It was very disrespectful.
Not only that, these people were criticizing Rand Paul for his polite applause. Like he didn't show enough passion applauding every syllable that was being slurred out of the mouth of Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, people.
It was so disgusting. I remember that.
Do you remember that?
Yes, it was disgusting.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah, and so it just kind of like, I mean, the way, and he was a willing tool for petty partisan politics here in the United States to try to go and make the Obama presidency as uncomfortable as possible. And just and my problem with Obama was he didn't stand up enough to Netanyahu.
No, he didn't. And it was every time he did stand up, you knew you had that whole right wing attacking Obama like he was the problem.
Yeah. This is where I think this whole secret Muslim thing came from. Well, actually, I'll tell you a funny little story about that secret Muslim conspiracy theory.
That was so crazy.
You may know this already, but I will just in case you're not aware. I'll see how you feel about this. It wasn't something that was created by Alex Jones or the Tea Party. Believe it or not, they didn't create this Obama was a secret Muslim conspiracy theory.
Oh, I know who did, but I'm not going to say anything.
Oh, I'll say it.
You say, no, you be the one to say it.
It was Hillary Clinton and Sidney Blumenthal.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, he became so popular because Hillary Clinton was so unliked, and they were like, well, we got to go and do something about this Obama guy. What can we do? Oh, he's got a funny sounding name. Let's go and say he was secretly born in Kenya and he's secretly Muslim, and spread it around. And a lot of the right wing today, even those that still believe that the birth certificate was false, they're too goddamn stupid to realize it was Hillary Clinton that was the one that came out with that conspiracy theory.
Right, and they'll go after Hillary for everything else, but they won't when it comes to that.
Oh, they won't give her credit. They won't give her credit for something that they love using,
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, yes. As far as they're concerned, and they were concerned about the whole thing with Benghazi with regard to her. And honestly, I blame Hillary Clinton for Muammar Gaddafi's downfall completely. She's a war criminal on that alone, among other things. And I used to grow up thinking Muammar Gaddafi was a bad guy, and I'm not going to say he was an angel, but he was secular, and Libya was the most prosperous country in Africa. He borrowed the socialism he used in Libya was borrowed from Field Marshal Tito's vision of socialism when he was the leader of Yugoslavia. He used that model.
Right. And when you see the pictures of how Libya was and how she went in there, Hillary went in there, and it was horrific what she did. And, had she been elected, the whole Ukraine-Russia would have been sooner. And who knows where else she would have attacked.
In some ways, she was worse in some ways than Donald Trump. In some ways, and Donald Trump is bad all over the place. But I'm just saying, in some ways, there were certain areas where, foreign policy wise, he would have been worse than him, and he was he was bad in a lot of areas, such as the murder of General Qasem Soleimani in Iraq, the Iranian general, in early
Hmm.
2020, which that's a war crime too, of course. So, but
Yeah, she would have been unhinging her in foreign policy.
yeah. So I mean, I just at the time, I thought, oh, about the whole Benghazi thing, and I was like, well, that's just the right wing trying to go after her, even though I wasn't particularly fond of her. But you know what? They should have, for my reasons, they should have gone after her, and I don't care how she ends up in prison. I would love to see her in prison, just as I would love to see George W. Bush and all these other assholes that played a role in making the Middle East far worse than it was prior to 9/11. And that's not a praise of anybody that was involved with 9/11 on the other side. I'm just, make that clear too.
Right. This is all for the Greater Israel Plan, all on behalf of Zionism.
Even the Iraq War was in many ways because Benjamin Netanyahu, in spite of Ariel Sharon's moderating at that time, and then Netanyahu was the foreign minister, and
Hmm.
he encouraged Bush and Blair to go into Iraq.
Yeah, we saw him sitting there saying that he had proof that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. He sat there and
And,
said that.
and I know people to this day that believe that there were weapons of mass destruction. In fact, not too long ago, I know somebody said, well, they just haven't found it yet.
Yeah, Israel has weapons of mass destruction.
I'm opposed to any country having weapons of mass destruction, including the United States.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And also, who is the U.S. or Israel to make claims about other countries when they have them themselves?
Yeah. And when it comes to, nukes, name a country that used nukes. Only one country nuked a group of people.
Hmm.
Was the United States.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. The Japanese were the bad guys in World War II, just as the Germans were. But two mushroom clouds it didn't justify,
No, it didn't.
yeah.
It didn't at all. It was just the way of testing something on people, and that was totally wrong. I know it's
Yeah.
totally wrong now too. You have Israel that not only are they using white phosphorus in Gaza, they're using white phosphorus in southern Lebanon. And Lebanon had brought that up, that they're bringing it to the UN, about the fact that they're using it in southern Lebanon on farmland. Now, scientists have said that the land will be uninhabitable if you use white phosphorus on it. Now, we've seen what Israel has done with the white phosphorus in northern Gaza, and what they've done with, you see it not only in the land, but it's the people, their skin. You know, it's terrible and it's illegal. It is illegal to use white phosphorus, but yet Israel continues to use it.
Yeah. I mean, when I see those pictures, um, almost daily online, it just um, makes me just makes me sad.
Yeah.
Just the rubble, the people who are suffering, the bloody, corpses out there that you see, and just and just the idea of going into that whole area of Gaza, you know, as bad as it was 9 years ago, 10 years ago, when it was going on, it was
Hmm.
like it was there for a little bit, and then everything, the ceasefire, everything calmed down again. But it's like this time they're like, you know, um, this time, I mean, I don't understand where it is controversial to call it what it is. And look, I mean, I tell people Yemenis were dying because of Saudi Arabia. Doesn't mean that I hate the people of Saudi Arabia. I hate that the government of Saudi Arabia, the military, the royal family were involved with the genocide against the people of Yemen. And it applies the same thing with Israel. Again, we're not talking about the average people that lives in the country, but governmental policies.
Yes. And where Gaza is concerned too, when they talk about the ceasefire, Israel broke that anyway, because just from the time frame with doing my show, we shared how Israel was bombing different places in Gaza. They were continuing doing it.
You
And
know
this
what?
is, yeah. And there was a guy from a show we did that I always think about. He has the photography studio on the Gaza beach. And Israel would just come and bomb his studio for no reason at all.
Yeah.
They just do stuff because they can. And they do it because they want to keep showing their power over Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, when people look back in history, they're going to look at what happened in Gaza, and they're going to rightfully compare it to what happened. If the Holocaust in Germany is a little bit too insulting, I can give other examples. The killing fields of Cambodia, what Pol Pot did over there, is what Netanyahu, I mean, in a lot of ways, it resulted with well, in Cambodia, it resulted over 1 million people. But what they're doing in that small little area. I mean, what was it, like 2 million people live in Gaza, and
Over 2 million, yeah.
yeah, 40,000 so far since October the 7th. I mean, 40,000 is still a large number of people, and it is a genocide. You can compare it to what happened with Slobodan Milosevic in the former Yugoslavia when the country fractured apart. Um, you know, uh, you compare it to all kinds of massacres around the world, but the point is that Israel has joined that club, and they, they're not a democracy. They're not a. In fact, I'm going to put a Western centric view on this. It's anti-Western what Israel is doing to the people of
Hmm.
Gaza. It
Oh,
runs
definitely.
against everything that a Western civilized society is supposed to believe.
Hmm.
That's kind of where I stand on this, and we need to call this out until this shit ends.
Right, and it's intentional. You look at the people that they bombed, the places they bombed. You look at doctors, medical staff, educators, um, you know, journalists. They went after. They want to get rid of
They do.
groups of educated people that they felt weren't needed. You look at the different poets.
You know what kills me is when somebody try to act like they have a little bit of empathy, and they use a little psychology, and they'll be like, yeah, but do you condemn Hamas?
Oh, I hate when people say that.
Well, I have an answer for that, and my answer is, yes, I do. But here's the thing about it: Hamas was created by, well, not exactly created, but the Mossad groomed Hamas into being what it was, or what it
Hmm.
is today, as a way to try to weaken the political influence of the PLO in the 1970s and 1980s, which orbited around the Soviet Union at the time. And that's why their thing is, well, we'll use fundamentalism to replace leftist secularism and use this divide conquer strategy.
Right. So this way they don't, because Israel does not want, well, the Zionist government does not want a Palestinian state. So it was a great way to separate the West Bank from Gaza.
And when I look at the West Bank, I always, until recently, just assumed that there is the West Bank and it's predominantly Palestinian, that they govern their own affairs in that area, but it's not really, it's like tiny little bubbles of areas that's Palestinian, and everything around it is still pretty much Israeli.
Well, they're all illegal settlements. They're illegal under international law. And recently, the Israeli Times, was it the Israeli Times or was Haaretz, published a Smotrich and Ben Gavir and different people that they get these mortgage loans. Say they look for a plot of land and they get a mortgage loan for that land, but that's like in already Israeli territory. But what they'll do with that loan, that mortgage loan, they won't build it where they said they're going to build it. They'll build it, say, in a newly created outpost to get an illegal settlement going. And it gets authorized, it gets signed by the Zionist land authority. So it's a scheme that they've been doing to build their settlements.
And if I'm correct, this is sort of connected to what was it? I think they had, it was during the Oslo Accords 20-some years, 22, 23 years ago, where it looked like them at the time. I thought that there was going to be an end to the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, and there was an offer that was made by the Israeli government that Arafat turned down. At the time, I didn't know any better. I thought, why in the world did he turn this down? And apparently, it was that the West Bank was not 100% going to be under the Palestinians. So there was a big chunk of it that was still going to be under Israeli control. So big that that it was just not a feasible plan. And that's when the second Intifada, I believe that was when the next Intifada took place. And at the time, I didn't know this. I thought, well, at the time, it appeared that the Israelis were being the good cop, but apparently they weren't, and they were trying to trick the Palestinians to accepting a peace deal that was not really going to do what it was supposed to do.
Right, because they technically, the Zionists don't want peace. The Zionists, they want all that land, and they will keep at it. And that was part of Jordan signing peace and recognition of Israel, was the fact that the Zionists are going to leave Jordan alone. They're not going to go in there and try to conquest it as part of their greater Israel plan. But the interesting thing was, I believe it was Ben Gavir when he was talked, say it earlier in March, and he was speaking up at that funeral, and then I believe it was in Paris, whatever. And he showed a map of Greater Israel. And Greater Israel, there was no Palestine, there was no Jordan. It was all Israel.
Yeah, I remember when I think it was you and Joe Firestone showed me that map several months ago on your show. And that was the first time I saw that particular map, what they call the Greater Israel. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard the term before. And I'm thinking, I mean, just the looks of it is goofy. I mean, just...
It is. And they teach that to their students in Israel.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, it goes way on down into Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Parts of Iraq, parts of swallows up Lebanon. It looks like it swallows up Syria, even parts of Turkey, it looks like.
Yeah. So you see, that is a dangerous, dangerous plan. But that's their plan, and they're not going to stop it. So they're not looking for peace. They're looking for more land.
And what's so sad about it is that, you have two parties here in America that's not going to do anything about it. I mean, they're not. They're just going to. They're just going to just do everything they can to succumb to Netanyahu. Maybe the only difference is cosmetic. I mean, Trump talked about one drop of blood will be met with a gallon of blood. Of course, this is Donald Trump. We know he's going to go and be over the top with his rhetoric.
Yeah.
But with the Biden people, it's kind of like, please play nice. And then,
Yeah, wishy-washy. Yeah.
Wishy-washy. And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why. I just don't understand the whole mentality of this whole situation. And I mean, it just sickens me. I mean, that's just it just sickens me since, especially since October 7th, when this crap really just got underway. I mean, not that it was wonderful prior to it. It was, the injustice was there, but the injustice just intensified.
Oh, it is. And I think what's happened too, when we talk about the veil being lifted, the veil on people were woken up since October 7th to actually the racism of Zionism, and they're really seeing for themselves what
Yeah.
the people think. They hear their own words coming from the different soldiers' mouths, and they hear all of this. I mean, we've had it on my show. We've showed these rabbis that teach the young people about hating the Arabs, and you see little kids on a school bus singing how the whole world hates Arabs. So it's this indoctrination that they just think they're normal. They think that this is normal, and we're seeing their actions. It's not normal. It's that they're so indoctrinated that it's, in order to have peace, you've got to change the mindset. The Israeli mindset, the Zionist mindset, that's got to go. That is just extreme racism.
Absolutely. And it just, and the fact that a group like APAC going to be targeting politicians for tepid criticisms of Israel just astounds me. I mean, they're going to go. This is what they're going to do. They're going to go and they'll attack the inept squad at this point. Members of the squad, but who are useless. But if Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about Jewish space lasers, they don't flinch or even express any outrage over that.
No. But I have to say, with the squad, yeah, there's a power in Washington that you can only go so far. So it's just a matter of increasing the progressives in Washington. And they need more funding. But I do have to say, on their own, the squad members usually have people, in their communities, and they do have a lot of money. And they've got a huge battle on their hand fighting, APAC.
Yeah. The APAC has already pretty much scared people like John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, to the point that the idiot wears the Israeli flag everywhere he goes now.
That is so sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's comical, but it's sick too at the same time. He just kind of like, and he basically told the left wing people that got him elected he basically told them to fuck off. And just kind of like it, just like
It's disappointing. It really is that they have no backbone.
nobody in the two-party system, you know, is willing to. Actually, only the bravest person in the two-party system is a Republican congressman from Kentucky. What's his name? Thomas Massey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who's more of a Ron Paul type. Um, and because I think they're after him too. The APAC is after him as well. So it's pretty bipartisan. They're enemies of APAC.
Yeah, and we've got to watch out too. I was reading yesterday was in Florida. We have to watch out for. Trying to think now for some reason. Why can't I think of his name? Scott Rick. That's Scott. Yeah, was it Rick Scott?
Rick Scott, the senator.
Yeah, we have to watch out for him. And they talk about the Kentucky Turtle resigning,
Oh, because
retiring.
next in
Yeah,
line. He tried to take that position away from Mitch McConnell, and the only thing about him is that he's not as competent as Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is truly evil because he knows the government like the back of his hand, and if there were, he was Project 25 before there was Project 25.
right. Because Rick Scott he gets in with a lot of his own money. He's got a lot of money, and he truly hates poor people. He hates them with a passion because he grew up at a trailer park. He grew up very poor, and you would think he would have compassion, but he doesn't.
I have noticed that about new money conservatives, because if they come from a poor working class background and somehow make it, they are resentful of, they tend to be resentful and do not have empathy and what have you. It is terrible. But speaking of Florida, Debbie Wasserman Schultz has a challenge.
She's hard.
She's got a challenger. Again, Jen Perlman is running to try to unseat Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And
I really like Jen. Jen's really good people. She's really good.
She they agreed to come on my show again, probably in the next few weeks or months. I got to get back with them about that, but they're I'll talk to them about it. Jen looks like Jen will be coming back on the show and talking about the campaign. So, and APAC is going to go after her too. They're going to
they will.
They can to try to destroy her.
She's very good, and especially the way she describes her upbringing. She grew up in a Zionist home.
Yep. She was an indoctrinated Zionist, she says.
Indoctrinated, yes. And she had to do her own research, and now she speaks out. She speaks out about it. And she's got a tweet that I have saved that I've shared often, So she's very good with speaking out. And that's really great when you have people that grew up indoctrinated into Zionism, and they come out of it and they talk to people about it, because a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, not just her. Aaron Matei's father, Gabor Matei, was initially a Zionist many years ago. He refuted that, and as I said, you have the gray zone. Aaron Matei, Max Blumenthal, two Jewish individuals who are opposed to what's going on in Israel. Glenn Greenwald, two dissidents.
Oh, definite. Yes, I know there's several of them, and that's great.
Norman Finkelstein, just, and what's so terrible about all this? There are Zionists that are considered bad Zionists by the right wing, like what's his name, Rabbi Michael Lerner. Remember him from
yes.
Kun magazine? he's considered an anti-Zionist. Some of these people, even some people who I guess you can call them the good cop Zionists, they get called, they get, you know, smeared as anti-Semitic and self-hating and all of that, which is, you know, it's ridiculous, but that's where people tend to go these days.
Right. And, there were people that would say they were Zionists, but they were just Zionists saying, yeah, a state of Israel. But, they weren't into this whole greater Israel plan. They weren't into um, the slaughter of Palestinians. Some people would say, yes, the partisan area of Israel and just settle in there, and that was it. They weren't into this whole expansion or colonialist project. They weren't extremists.
But there is that, and I'm not gonna fall anybody under that category. But we're talking about actively people who are actively engaging in the slaughter, not somebody who wants to buy a tree for Israel. I mean, that's not controversial, but somebody who's actually engaging in crimes against humanity. Um, Netanyahu and some of the cabinet ministers who are actually to his right. They're actually, like George Galloway said when the Israeli election happened last year. He said it himself. He says that the government is so far to the right that Netanyahu is a moderate.
Oh God!
How crazy is that?
Well, that's what Netanyahu needed to get in office. He did what he could to get
And,
in
and,
office.
and nobody can tell me that Israel's a democracy when the man tried to eradicate maybe the one roadblock that would actually do the evils that Netanyahu want to do, and that was basically to do the overreach to the Supreme Courts in that country to try to take away any power that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad that roadblock discourages Israel from doing more harm than they're doing, which they're doing way too much of as it is.
Oh, definitely. It's the stuff out of these people's mouths. When you talk about you can't make this stuff up, when they'd say, "Oh, we just want to wipe them out, wipe out every Palestinian."
Yep, pretty much.
And they were saying this before October 7th. They were saying this early on. They needed to wipe them all out, and then saying, well, they just won't leave. The Palestinians won't leave. We're trying everything to get them to leave, and they won't leave. And I'm always like, well, why do they have to leave for? It's their land.
Yeah, yep. And here's the thing. My understanding is that prior to 1948, um, that everybody kind of peacefully coexisted at one point.
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Now, I know that the Zionists, well, the Zionist group that was the two groups historically that were causing a lot of problems were the Irgun and the Stern Gang, which were both kind of a right, like the hard right of it, and they were on friendly terms with Benito Mussolini, and so you had that on one side, and then you had the Grand Mufti on the other side who was praising Hitler. It just created a clusterfuck, and I've always said, I'm just kind of observing over the years that it was a mistake to sit there and create a country like that in Palestine, that I have argued that maybe would have been better as a form of reparations if one must create a country to take what it was East Prussia, which is now northern Poland,
Mm-hmm.
as a form of reparations for what the Germans did, to grant that land and let that be, you know, if you want to create Israel and what is, you know, what used to be East Prussia, I wouldn't have any problems with that, you know. But in Palestine, it's ridiculous.
Right. They had nothing to do with anything. These people were just leading their lives.
Yes, they were.
Leading their lives. And then you heard that growing up too, I'm sure. Saying, was it a land without a people?
Yes, I'm familiar with that phrase.
Yeah, so we were just lied to. Like there was nobody there. It was all sand. Oh, what a great match, you know? Leave
Might
out the fact that there was a bunch of people there.
not have been a high population, but yeah, of course there were people there, you know. And honestly, this whole Zionism thing was became a problem not because of Judaism itself, but because of what the right wing did for many centuries in Europe over millennia. In Europe, and even to
Hmm.
some extent here in North America, the violent.
Hmm. Oh, Willie just disappeared. I'm sure he'll be back soon. Miguel, I agree with you. When you say Israel has the right to go F itself. Yeah, I say that Israel to F itself many times in my mind when I read different things that they're doing and the atrocities that are happening. I just say F Israel, F, you know, I'm like, oh, please stop it. I don't normally use that phrase, and it's just the horror show has me thinking that way. And every single day we've seen this for a long time. And still Israel doesn't think it has to listen. It's not going to listen to the UN. So what's the next step? Got to get ahead of the game. Yeah, we lost Willie. I'm sure Willie will come back, Miguel. But I'm looking at the next step. What will the U.S. do? What will people do? So Israel complies. And I did hear that some U.S. corporations are stepping out of Israel. And as many people have said, that it's quite easy for the U.S. to stop the ceasefire. It's very easy. All the U.S. has to do is stop funding Israel. Just stop the funding, stop the weaponry, just stop it all, and there you go. And reparations should be made to Israel, to Gaza, to
Hello.
rebuild the land, clean the soil. Yeah, I was just here talking while you disappeared.
Yeah, I have bad internet connection. That's what happened.
And I was like, whoa, he disappeared.
Yeah, sorry about that. Oh my goodness.
So where were you at with your sentence when you disappeared? You were in the middle and more listening, and then all of a sudden, whoa, he's gone.
What was I saying, real quick?
We were talking. You was talking about the better place for Israel
Oh, I mentioned
to have been
East
created.
Prussia. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, East Prussia. I said that, and I said something else afterwards.
yeah, because the Palestinians had nothing to do with it, and we were saying, yeah, they're not going to do with it. They were just leading their lives.
Yes, and the centuries of right wing oppression against Jewish people uh, in certain parts of the Jewish community negated this whole Zionist question, which, had they not been discriminated against for centuries by the right wing, I don't mean every right wing person in
Hmm.
the hard right, whether we're talking about in Russia or what happened in Germany or even the we just don't trust them in some places in the West. That's the sort of attitude that they've been facing with for centuries.
But
Uh,
they were put into situations too because of the usury laws. When you look up usury laws,
right,
the usury Christians weren't allowed to issue loans to, with interest. And that goes back to the days of Jesus. You saw how he was with the bankers, with the money, with the loans and stuff. So that was illegal for any Christian to loan out money with interest. So that's where it came to in Europe for the Jewish people to do that. So it wasn't like they chose to do it, but it was something because they didn't, they weren't Christians. And then you also had it with the Roma people too, the Gypsies, the Romas,
right. That's right.
because they could loan out money too with interest. So if you had people that were non-Christians and they could loan out money with interest, they were the problem. And then they said the bankers, and Napoleon Bonaparte had spoken out against the whole usury issuing money with loans and how it destroyed economies. People destroyed their homes, destroyed their land. That whole usury thing, because the interest rates would be high, people couldn't afford it. So instead of just not having, then Europe would say then that it was illegal, but they would allow the Jewish people to do it. So when
Because in their
economies, so economies would fall apart, but they would blame it then on the Jewish people when
and not only that, they are like, well, for them, they were thinking, well, they're damned and they're going to hell. So,
yeah,
they are like, yeah, so we'll let them do that, which is really just,
it is disgusting. And
yeah,
something in Germany too, Hitler had a fit with the economy collapsing, and who was president of the bank? And it was a Jewish man.
see, they get blamed. They're either blamed for capitalism or they're blamed for communism, and it's just that's the way it goes too. It just
But on the other hand, you should just forbid the people from taking out loans.
I'll say do a whole lot of forgiveness of loan debts too.
Yeah, forgiveness. Yeah, the Bible actually, what does it say? What is it? Something about every 7 years, the forgiveness of debt.
Um,
But anyway, according to the Bible, anyway, Christians aren't supposed to be loaning out money with interest.
but the whole thing is, with the a lot of events kind of just led to this unfortunate situation, to even where we're at today. So
Yeah.
absolutely. So, but I tell you what, I tell you that I may cut the show short because damn, I got interrupted with the internet. Yeah,
Poor
yeah,
Willie.
yeah. But do you have any final words?
Mhm. I think we all just got to keep our eyes tuned to what's going on. Gaza, West Bank, and really think about it. We're all Palestinians when you think about it, because you
Yeah,
look at what these right wing Zionists want to do and what their game plan is. I mean, we're all in that position. We look at, like we talked about earlier on the show, with protesting, with you can't speak out against Zionism or Israel. They're trying to make laws to make certain things illegal. So it's this power grab just to silence us all. So this Zionism is just doesn't affect, I mean, obviously the Palestinians have the worst end of the deal. Don't think it won't happen. Things won't happen to us.
it's funny. As much as I despise Candace Owens, this whole Zionism thing with between her and Ben Shapiro, like, damn it, you got me feeling sorry for Candace Owens.
Well, she woke up somewhere.
Yeah. Now my prediction on her is she's carving a lane for herself. So she's going to be teaming up with Tucker Carlson. Is what I think she's going to do. She knows what she's doing.
Right, and you got to keep your eyes out too with the West Bank, with Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa Mosque, because they got that whole red heifer sacrifice.
Yeah, I remember that with the red heifer. I mean that's wow.
It's
That's
sick. It's sick. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah. That's crazy. But I have to go to work in a little while, so
Okay, I'll let you go and
no
just
no
yes,
no no
well,
no
free
no.
Palestine, safe
Yeah,
Palestine.
exactly. Free Palestine and making sure that to not get discouraged that while there is a lot of injustice going on against the Palestinian people, there is an awareness now, and it's becoming even less controversial all the time, which is a victory in itself to
Yes, it is.
say what it is, and and hopefully there will be justice for the Palestinian people, and and justice for everybody of goodwill.
Yes.
Even the left wing inside of Israel that are opposed to this bullshit. So
Hmm.
there are friends too, and
Right.
and
That's
so
true.
and so we need to go and support those on the left that are fighting the good fight inside that country against what is essentially a theocratic fascist state. That's the secularism is gone from the country. It's no longer, it used to be a secular country. Is secularism is gone because the theocratic elements took over, and they became just as horrible as the people they condemn in other countries
Hmm.
in that region. And so and I don't like theocratic states. I don't care what religion it is. I do not like the idea of a theocracy anywhere, whether it's
Uh,
Saudi Arabia, whether it's Israel, or the evangelicals that wants to invoke a Christian Sharia here in the United States.
or in India with that Hindu Veda group. That's
That's true.
crazy too.
Yes, and whatever form it is, I mean, is to be condemned all across the board. So
Yes, it is. And I just want to say one thing. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, at 7 p.m., I'm going to be on earlier than I normally am. It's because Madeline Hoffman, she is in Ireland, and she's going to be coming on the show telling us about what's going on in Ireland.
I admire Ireland. I what because they're the ones they're making everybody aware too, and they would know because they were under subjugation by the British for
Yes,
and so it comes kind of close to home with them.
yes, it does.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful country. If you've never been to Ireland, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm looking at her pictures. She's got beautiful pictures posted.
Yeah, I was there 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, and as I said, yeah, I loved every second of it. I would go back in a heartbeat. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd like to go too.
yeah. Um, Things are not that expensive in Ireland compared to you go to England, everything's double for what it is here. But the euro in Ireland will, you know, you you you'll get a good bang out of your buck there in Ireland compared to shopping in England.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so now you know. So
Now I know. Thank you, Willie.
yeah, and if you stick around for a second, I'll talk to you real quick before I go. So, everyone, take care. Free Julian Assange, free Palestine, free healthcare for all, and free speech. Y'all go ahead and take care. And let me do this real quick. All right, and roll in the credits here.
That's cool.
Oh,